One candidate who took his campaign to the streets today in a way that only he can. Jello Biafra, the lead singer in the punk rock group The Dead Kennedys, he held a news conference at City Hall. He then went on to do what he calls shaking babies and kissing hands.
Jello Biafra wants all the police elected by the communities in the communities they serve. He would like to auction off the city's high offices to the highest bidders. Jello also wants to put more cable cars into service and to get rid of as many cars as possible. And I also believe there was one other plank in his platform of having all businessmen in the downtown area wear clown suits. I just find it a little hard to take you as a serious candidate.
Well, I think if you look around, you'll find that my candidacy is no more of a joke and no less of a joke than anyone else running you care to name.
Divide and rule. That's the ancient formula. Divide et impera. That's what the Polish government does. You know, they need enemies and they need scapegoats, and I'm one of their favorite scapegoats and enemies.
In 2010, Nergal was facing up to 2 years in prison under Polish blasphemy law for tearing up a Bible on stage. He called the Bible a book of lies, and the case went all the way to the Polish Supreme Court. It was just the beginning of a decade of legal trouble for the behemoth frontman.
You know, regularly I'm being called to court or for like interview by the police. They're gonna put a sentence on me for being, abnormal, different, calling me a public enemy, evil incarnate, this and that. Well, it's cool metaphors, but honestly, am I one? I don't think so.
The PMRC proposal is an ill-conceived piece of nonsense which fails to deliver any real benefits to children, infringes the civil liberties of people who are not children, and promises to keep the courts busy for years dealing with the interpretational and enforcemental problems inherent in the proposal's design. It is my understanding that, in law, First Amendment issues are decided with a preference for the least restrictive alternative. In this context, the PMRC demands are the equivalent of treating dandruff by decapitation. No one has forced Mrs. Baker or Mrs. Gore to bring Prince or Sheena Easton into their homes. Thanks to the Constitution, they are free to buy other forms of music for their children. Apparently, they insist on purchasing the works of contemporary recording artists in order to support a personal illusion of aerobic sophistication. Ladies, please be advised, the $8.98 purchase price does not entitle you to a kiss on the foot from the composer or performer in exchange for a spin on the family Victrola.
Discipline and self-restraint, when practiced by an individual, a family, or a company, is an effective way to deal with this issue. The same thing when forced on a people by their government, or worse, by a self-appointed watchdog of public morals, is suppression and will not be tolerated in a democratic society. Mr. Chairman, the suppression of a people or of a society begins, in my mind, with the censorship of the written or spoken word. It was so in Nazi Germany. It is so in many places today where those in power are afraid of the consequences of an informed and educated people. In a mature and incredibly diverse society such as ours, the access to all perspectives of an issue becomes more and more important.
You say your song, Under the Blade, is about surgery. Have you ever had surgery with your hands tied and your legs strapped? So it's not really a wild leap of the imagination to jump to the conclusion that that's about something other than surgery or hospitals, neither of which are mentioned in the song.
No, it's not a wild jump, and I think what I said in one part was that songs allow a person to put their own imagination, experiences, and dreams into the lyrics. People can interpret it many ways. Ms. Gore was looking for sadomasochism and bondage, and she found it. Someone looking for surgical references would have found it as well.
Because the American people had the optimism, the ingenuity, and the will to make a difference, the lives of millions of people halfway around the world have been saved. But I'm here today with a simple message. The AIDS epidemic is not over, and America's continued leadership is critical. There is a window of opportunity before us, a window through which we can very clearly see the end of AIDS within my lifetime. We cannot afford to let the window close.
What's your worst fear?
The worst fear is stigma, to be honest with you. But getting people to feel unashamed, to feel they're okay with this virus, and not to feel as if they're being threatened by their own government because they may have a sexual orientation the leader of the government doesn't approve of, is incredibly important. Not only is it a humane crime, it is a medical crime as well.
My name is Ted Nugent. I was born in Detroit in 1948, and I've never missed a deer season since. While I'm sitting here, deer are swapping spit. They eat off the same apple. They eat off the same branch. They all go to a licking branch. If you don't know what a licking branch is, there's one every couple acres in Michigan, and every subsequent deer absorbs that body fluid. It's happening right now while I'm sitting here. You can't ban that. Wisconsin adopted the feed and baiting ban. They have lost 200,000 deer hunters. It is going away because people like to see as many deer as possible, and if that means moving the apples from where the deer are eating them under the apple tree, if that means moving those apples closer to my deer stand, I would challenge anybody in this room to tell me what scientific miracle takes place when you relocate an apple from under the millions of apple trees in Michigan closer to a young man's deer stand in Kalkaska. I have given you no opinions here today. I live with deer. Every year of my life, it is my soul cleansing quality of life mantra. The scientists must not do that, because if they think they can stop deer from swapping spit, they're idiots. I'd recommend they stay in the lab, wear their white jackets, and shut up.
Just like a carpenter who crafts a table gets to decide whether he wants to keep it, sell it, or give it away, shouldn't we have the same options? We should decide what happens to our music, not a company with no rights in our recordings, which has never invested a penny in our music or had anything to do with its creation. The choice has been taken away from us.
Europe is America's most important ally since the Second World War. Are we not your most important ally in the fight against violent extremism? These countries need aid, but it's not just aid. Commerce is urgent here. New trade agreements are critical. Concessional loans from the World Bank are essential. There were members on this subcommittee who refused to accept that AIDS was a problem that couldn't be solved. And since 2002, we now have nearly 9 million people who owe their lives to the US taxpayer. If you're a US taxpayer, you're an AIDS activist. Think about that.
Brothers and sisters, a couple things we want to say right quick. A couple things. Rage Against the Machine is a band that has never advocated violence. We've always advocated a direct opposition to unjust wars like the one started by John McCain and the Republicans and Bush and all of them. That's why we're here today, standing peaceful opposition. Now, in honor of that peaceful opposition, we wish that the police and the state here in Minneapolis would do the same thing. Damn right. People take to the streets. Damn right. Yeah. Why the are these cops so afraid of us? Are they afraid of us? No. They're afraid of us. They're not afraid of 4 musicians. They're afraid of you.
We have the new CD out, and it comes with the DVD.
What's your CD?
The CD is called Rock Against Bush.
Oh, I see.
CD.
I thought that was the
What's not my band?
I thought that's an amalgamation.
There's 26 bands on it. It's volume 1. There's another one coming out. Anyway, there's a DVD on there with a lot of good information out there. And we've been showing these movies at our shows. And when the kids find out what's going on, there's a movie about the war in Iraq, and it's all CIA agents talking. It's not crazy liberal left-wing people. It's CIA agents saying that our information was good. You know, we did not need to go to war. Anyway, so kids, when they find this stuff out, then they start caring.
You feel fulfilled doing this, or do you feel like you're betraying your punk roots?
Yeah, I do. Well, I wish I didn't have to do this.
Yeah, you don't like speaking about this.
I don't like doing interviews. I don't like politics. I like we were talking about earlier, I like gambling, I like golfing and drinking, and that's what I want to do. But someone has to do this. Someone has to get our generation involved in this election.
A punk rock legend, Joe Keithley, the first time we have seen you in a suit, my friend. You clean up well.
Basically, if I get elected, then it'll be the end of DOA for 4, 8, 12 years.
See how long it
Yeah,
goes?
depending.
Well, tell us about who you're running for and what you've been up to knocking on doors.
Yeah, I'm running for the NDP. I'm vying for the nomination. I'm in Coquitlam Burke Mountain, which is the northern half of Coquitlam.
Yeah.
And I'm vying for the nomination against 3 other gentlemen. And I hope to get that.